Hi, my name's Catrin Parry. I study music, composition and technology for film and games at the University of Hertfordshire, and this is my final year project. In this video essay, I will go over what this project is, what my goals were, and why I decided to do this as my project. I'll also showcase specific elements of the project, highlighting both what went well and the various challenges I had. My final year project is a custom-made interactive audio program made using the middleware software Fmod and the game engine Unity. It is intended to be a solution to a problem specific to tabletop role-playing games, or TTRPGs. Solutions to this problem already exist, but there's one key difference that I wanted to explore in my project that no currently available solution utilises. TTRPGs are story-based games led by one person called the Dungeon Master, or DM. They describe the environment and play different characters which the players can interact with by asking questions or role-playing with the DM or other players.
Suddenly into view, a little bit of eye shine in the darkness, you see an owl bear. It opens its beak and squawks at you. What do you do?
Have I ever met an owl bear before? Like, are owl bears?
We could do a history check.
For it to work, the DM has to prepare different environments, characters, and storylines for the players to interact with.
But is the goal to win?
No.
What's
There
the
is
goal?
no goal is to tell a great story.
Tell a great story.
And it's just collaborative storytelling.
It is well known that music and sound can enhance any experience with storytelling. The same is true in TTRPGs, and GMs will often use film scores and other music to soundtrack their games. This is where problems come in though, as this music isn't made for multiple hour-long gaming sessions, and a common experience is being annoyed by the repeating looping music, or sitting in silence as the DM tries to find the right song for a situation. There are multiple available solutions to this, such as Tabletop Audio, a website dedicated to creating 10-minute-long music tracks and loopable ambiences, sorted into different tags you can filter through. But in practice, it doesn't completely solve the problems outlined earlier. In an interview I held with the CEO and founder of Sirenscape, Benjamin Looms, he stated that he found these same problems in his home game and attempted to make loopable 15-minute ambiences similar to what we find in Tabletop Audio, but found the repetitiveness to be a big problem.
Humans are pattern discoverers, very quickly sort of noticing the same pattern every time I put on a certain ambience that I'd built in Cubase. So a 15-minute loop is not going to sort of cut. It's not going to cut a realistic atmosphere when you're spending kind of 45 minutes in a town or whatever, negotiating with the locals.
This is what led Looms to create Sirenscape, an alternative solution to these problems using adaptive music and sound. This means that in Sirenscape, you can play different sounds and music and go seamlessly between them. You can take control of certain elements of each scene, such as when lightning strikes, or if music is playing, and how intense the music is. You can pick and choose exactly what elements you want in, and it won't stop unless you tell it to, so you're never in silence. It also isn't very repetitive, as not only do you go seamlessly between different scenes, but each scene has an element of randomness involved, using algorithms and coding.
Definitely very involved, obviously, always with the sound design and the mathematics of all the algorithms and all that sort of stuff that keeps it sounding natural and realistic and non-repetitive and all that sort of thing,
In my interview with Looms, he goes on to tell me all about how Sirenscape works, and I found it very interesting that it uses Unity, a game engine, to simulate a 3D space, and then changes the distance of sound objects in relation to a static audio listener, thus utilising Unity's existing system for 3D game sound, which changes parameters such as volume and panning to manipulate the sounds and make them appear further away or to the left or right of the player, for example. The system that Looms outlines here uses a lot of programming and maths and algorithms, but its effects can be simulated using middleware such as Fmod.
I'm in my final year of my undergrad right now, and we're learning about being able to simulate kind of what you were talking about, but we're not actually doing it in a 3D space. We're doing it using like Fmod.
Similar machine, yes.
Fmod is a piece of software that does two main things. Firstly, it is audio middleware made for gaming, meaning it is software designed to sit between the game engine and the audio hardware. Secondly, it's a tool designed to make adaptive audio easy for musicians to create. It's modelled after Ableton, an industry-standard digital audio workstation, and theoretically allows for musicians with no coding knowledge to achieve the feats that Sirenscape's programmers have done themselves.
It's very cool hearing about how, you can use so many different things to get to like similar outcomes, which is very cool.
That's right.
This is what inspired this project. I wanted to answer the question, can a singular musician create a system like Sirenscape by using audio middleware instead of coding? With that in mind, I started thinking about this project and created the following list of aims and objectives. With my project being so closely linked to Sirenscape, I wanted to make sure my system was different in some way. So I decided I wanted to make a broader system, one that could theoretically be used for any game. One of the main attractions of Sirenscape is the fact that they create new sounds and music for specific pre-written adventures. And while you can take specific elements out and create your own scenes, This can be a very long task. I wanted a system that could be brought up for any game and not need much planning to integrate into a typical tabletop session. The next was to build a software to access that system in. I decided to use Unity as it has built-in Fmod support and an intuitive UI builder that doesn't require much coding knowledge to set up. I was partially inspired by a software called VideoTube, a simple UI-based program that is also built in Unity. While Unity is a very powerful tool that can achieve incredible feats in gaming, it also excels in its simplicity, and I wanted to explore this aspect further. And finally, in terms of the actual system itself, to demonstrate these objectives accurately, I decided to aim for 3 different scenes, each one with some level of adaptive music and ambience, as well as some kind of global scene that is designed to interact with any of the main scenes. Here is what I came up with. As you can see, the screen is divided into 4 sections. 3 main sections for the main scenes, the forest, the city, and the tavern, and 1 section along the bottom representing the global scene, Rain. Each section has a series of sliders and buttons that the DM can interact with during the session to change the sounds and music seamlessly. Here is the Fmod project, and here is the Unity project. These 2 files are what make up my final piece of software. The way this works is, in Fmod I have multiple events. These events can be evoked in Unity using very simple code connected to interactive game objects such as buttons and sliders. These game objects are already native to Unity. You don't have to code them yourself. Within the Fmod events, I have created different parameters. These parameters are completely customizable, and you can decide what happens when you increase or decrease a parameter. For example, in my Forest Atmosphere event, I have a parameter called Atmos Volume. I have set this parameter to be between 0 and 100, and in the parameter sheet, you can see these numbers represented at the top. From here, I activated automation on the master volume of the event, and set the decibels for 100 to be +0, and the decibels for 0 to be -infinity. I also made it a bit of a curve. Due to the relative nature of decibels, it makes a bit more sense to our ears. Now, when I change the parameter, you can see it changes the master volume dial in relation to where we are on the automation curve in the parameter sheet. You can add as many automation curves to the parameter sheet as you need to. For example, for the city scene, I have a drummer who you can be close to or far away from, controlled by the drummer distance parameter. In this parameter sheet, I have it controlling the wet and dry levels of reverb, as well as gain, substituting for volume here, to simulate how far away he sounds. You can see it changes all 3 dials at the same time. In Unity, I have it set so these parameters can be controlled by these sliders. For example, here's the drummer distance slider in Unity. You can see it's connected to the city atmosphere event and the drummer distance parameter within that event. So in my software, when the event is active, which you can control with this button, this slider will change the parameter, and we can hear the same changes here as we could in Fmod. For a deeper dive into my adaptive audio system itself, let's take a closer look into my Fmod project. In my Fmod project, I have 12 events. 6 of these are nested events, meaning they exist independently but are activated as a part of another event. For example, I have my tavern atmosphere in one event, which is then put inside the tavern music event. That way, in Unity, I can use one button to invoke both. The other 6 events have buttons in Unity to play or disable them. Most of the content within these events, known as assets in Fmod, are recorded or produced by me, such as the rain sounds, the city crowd, all of the music, the daytime forest ambience, and others. Some, such as the nighttime forest ambience and the tavern ambience, were taken from a royalty-free sound library. However, they were all edited and implemented by myself into Fmod using probability manipulation, scatter instruments, effects, and all that Fmod has to offer. I unfortunately don't have the time to explain everything I did in Fmod, but there's one way that I used parameters that I will go over, as it is the most involved and complicated part of the whole system. That being the intensity parameter for the suspenseful forest music. This parameter doesn't control volume or use any automation at all. It changes what section of the music is playing. When I composed this track, I made 3 sections: the suspense, the build-up, and the combat. Using this parameter, the DM can dynamically change what part of the music is playing based on what's happening at the table. This works using transition regions, which you can add a condition to. In this case, the condition is what value the parameter is at. As Fmod is a music software at heart, it prioritizes having these transitions make musical sense. I have it set to only check what the parameter value is at every bar or every 2 bars, meaning we can dynamically go between each section, and it sounds like an intentional part of the track that's reacting to the player's decisions. These transitions between sections are determined by hidden timelines called transition timelines. For my track, I mainly utilized some clever fading but I also threw on some percussion to some of the transitions to aid with the intensity climb into combat. Throw in some clever uses of looping and probability, adding conditions to singular files, as well as an extra parameter for the percussion, and the end result is a dynamic track that you could listen to for a while, especially if the DM is proactive about changing the values based on what's happening. So that covers everything about Fmod that I have time to talk about. So let's take a quick look at Unity. I've already gone over the buttons that play Fmod events and the parameter sliders, but you'll notice that there are also some toggles. These are still sliders in Unity, but by selecting the whole numbers option in Unity and making the minimum and maximum value in both Unity and Fmod 0 to 1, we can effectively make a toggle. This is useful for when you have absolutes. For example, the drummer is always either playing or not playing. So in Fmod, I have a transition region, so when the toggle is set to 1, it plays one of two endings, indicating that he's stopped playing. You can then set it back to 0 if you want him to play again. Using the seek speed option in Fmod, we can also fade between two set states. For example, the inside-outside toggle for the rain. This parameter controls an equalizer that turns the high frequencies down if the toggle is on inside, emulating the difference in how rain sounds when you go inside a building. With the seek speed option, you can set it to always take a certain amount of time to go from 0 to 1. So in this case, when we hit the toggle in my software, despite it going from 0 to 1 instantly, it takes some time to turn the EQ dial down. And that's mostly everything. The coding in this is very simple. Most of it is done using native game objects in Unity, and the UI is just two images that I made in Photoscape layered onto a canvas. Overall, this project turned out very well. While this was on a smaller scale than I'd originally hoped, I did complete my main objectives. I, as a singular musician, was able to make an adaptive music and sound system using middleware, and I did so with 4 unique scenes, all of which can interact with each other. Originally, only the rain was meant to interact with the other scenes, but as friends of mine who were testing the software pointed out, you can have the main scenes interact with each other as well.
Can I turn on the drummer by itself? Let's see. Oh wait, no, it's because of the drummer distance, right? Yeah! You can hear him outside while you're in the tavern.
This opens up many more options than I was originally intending, making it an even more dynamic and unique experience for every session, even with just 3 locations. As for whether it can be used in a real TTRPG session, my friend Josh made a 5-minute demo of how he believes it could be used, and while his review may be biased, the demo he made does provide some insight on how my software could theoretically be used to aid in the narrative.
As that knife hits the floor, similar glistens of knives begin to be seen in the darkness from the trees as shifting figures.
As it stands, however, the musical options are limited and most likely wouldn't be able to fill a whole session. My hope is in the future I'm able to expand on this by adding even more interactions, locations, variations on the sound design, and musical options, and then use it in a multi-hour TTRPG session. Of course, to do that, the UI would have to be expanded and cleaned up. As it stands, it is the main limiting factor of my project, and was the source of most of my challenges in making it. Everything is squished into one screen, looks messy, and leaves no room for expansion. In order to fix this, I could make a more involved UI in Unity, but that will require much more coding knowledge than what I currently have. That being said, I look forward to learning and continuing this project in the future. I hope you enjoyed my video essay and demonstrations of my final year project. In my final submission, I have included a bibliography, all of the assets I created and recorded, the final Fmod and Unity files, a 5-minute demonstration video of my software, a Windows build of the software, as well as this video essay and its script. Thank you for watching.